All right. So now, this is how the windows actually look like. The windows looked like this, so very ugly. And the only people that could use Windows at that time were people that are smart, like scientists, doctors, and computer engineers at that time. So Windows, they now started saying, okay, we don't want to let all our computer looks like this. Then they started adding all these guys. They started adding all these buttons. They started adding all these buttons to do all these tasks at the bottom here. They added all these file explorer. So anything you can do in this file explorer here, you can as well do it here in your terminal. So now I'm going to show how you can start creating a project from scratch. Meaning, if you want to start working on a standard project, how can you start working on that project? So in your command line, this is your command line interface. What you are seeing here, this terminal that is opened here is a command line interface. On your system, you can search it command prompt. You can just open the Windows and search for command prompts. So you should see it here. When you search for command prompt, look at it there. This is it here. You can open it.
What should I search for? What should I search for?
Command prompts. You can search for command prompts and you would see, let me send it on the, you can search for command prompts and you see, what is the chat? Right, you can just search for command prompts, and what you can launch, whatever you launch is going to look similar to this guy.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, what did you say I should search for?
Command prompt. You can search for command prompt. You can search for command prompt. So let me just carry on. You can still come back to watch the video, so because of time. All right. So now, yeah. So now in your command line interface, what we call a directory. There's what we call a directory. So in a layman language, a directory is actually called a folder. So all these guys that you see now on my desktop screen, all these niggas that you see here, all these guys, all these folders you are seeing here like this, they are all called directories. A programmer will call it a directory, but somebody that don't really understand what they are doing, they will call it a folder. A folder, open that folder, or do this on that folder. But in programming, we'll call it a directory. So now there are basic commands that you can use on your command line interface. So what I'm trying to do now, I'm going over it. Before I even start teaching you about the Python, I want to first teach you how you can properly narrow your way through your computer in a very technical way. Other than some people just have the laptop to just watch movies and all this, or how to properly use what the laptop is actually meant for. So initially, this is what we use. We use the command line interface to perform actions that we want to perform, and there are commands. If I open my file explorer now, if I want to create a new file here in my file explorer, right, all I need to do now is to create, I'll just click on the new button, then I create new folder, and the folder will create for me, and then I can name it sample, for example. So this guy like this now is, I've created a simple folder, as simple as it is, as easy as it is. I've created the folder. But when you're using it, this is a graphical user interface. That is why people like using GUI, because it's easier to use, it's easier to navigate. But these are people that are not so technical about what they're using their laptop for. They do it using this method. But that same process I just did in creating a folder, I can do that same process here again, and it's still going to work fine. Do you understand? So now there's what we call like I explained, a directory. A directory is also called a folder. In a layman term, it's called folder, but in technical term, we call it a directory. Directory, that's what we call it. So now there are commands. So before I can create this folder, I have to do some things. I have to click this button. I have to click this. Anything, everything I can do in this particular screen or this particular window is by clicking. If I click here now, I've navigated to my desktop. If I click here, I've navigated to my downloads folder. If I click here, I've navigated to my documents. So everything I can do in my GUI are all based on actions. Actions like clicking, hovering, double click, and all those things. But in my GUI, but in my command line interface, what I perform instead of actions are what we call text-based commands. So we'll call it a text-based command. So now, number one, I mentioned a directory, right? It's also called a folder. I mentioned the directory is also called a folder. And I mentioned that there's what we call the GUI, which stands for graphical, what we call the graphical user interface, right? Then I also mentioned that the CLI then is called the command line interface. So now the GUI, this guy here is an example of a GUI. So a command line interface is an example of this terminal that I just opened here. So now I mentioned now in your GUI, what you perform are actions. So actions like, when you click or you double click, or you do all those things. So these are actions. So the next thing now will be for in my CLI, instead of me doing clicking and double clicking, what I do is I type, and we'll call it a text-based command. What will perform here a text-based command? Just look at this entire screen. There's no place I can click here. Looking at this entire, what is nonsense now? Looking at this entire guy here, there's no place I can click, right? I can't click. The only place I can click is maybe I can switch through multiple shells. But at the point here, I can't click anything. The only thing I can do is to do what? Is to type, right? The only thing I can do there is to type. So now there are commands under this text-based command. There are commands that you would have to learn to be able to navigate yourself using that command line interface. And the first command I'm going to teach is what we call PWD. PWD. And PWD stands for print working directory. PWD stands for print working directory. Like I explained before, a directory is called a folder. So what this command does now is to print what directory you are currently working on. So now the only thing that consists on your laptop and the only thing that consists in programming are basic what we call files and folders. So everything sum up to either a file or a folder. Everything on my laptop here is either a file or a folder. Even applications, even apps themselves, they are files. Apps themselves, they are files. Pictures are files, images are files, audios, they are files, all those guys are files. So now if you ask me, how can you differentiate between a file and a folder? A file and a folder are differentiated using one major way, which is what we call an extension. So I think I'll move recording all these things so you can even watch them again. An extension. So let me give an example of a file. Now I'm sure you've seen something like picture.png before, or you've seen image.jpg. All these things here, they're all considered to be a file. Why? Because of this dot something they have at the end. So this .png is what we call the extension. So .png is what we call the file extension, right? So .jpeg is a file extension. You've seen .pdf, .docs, Microsoft Documents, the thing just goes on and on and on. But in programming, we don't use .jpeg or PNG. All these ones are for photographers. But what we use initially, the programming languages holds the extension name. So let's say I'm working on HTML now. What I call that file would be index.html. So HTML here, what the extension initially does is to indicate what content that file can hold. For example, now a picture.png indicates now that it's only PNG content that can be inside this file. Okay, let me give another example. If I say audio.mp3, MP3 indicates now that this file can only be listened to. It's an audio format. If I say video.mp4, this indicates now that this file I can also see graphics. Do you understand? So this is what extension is. And any file or anything you see on your laptop that has dots in it, sometimes the dot can start from the beginning or the dot can start from the end. But as long as that thing has a dot, it is a file. Anyone that does . not have dot is called folder, and anything that has dot is a file. In most cases, the dot always starts from the beginning or it starts at the end. So in Python now, if you want to create our file in Python so we can start writing code, we'll name it main.py. So .py indicates now that this file here is a Python code file. I can't come here. There are multiple programming language, for example, now JavaScript is a language, right? Python is a language. C++ is a language. C# is a language. Java, for example, is a language. So if I want to create a file and write JavaScript codes inside our file, what I call it is script.js. I use JS at the end just to indicate now that this file can only hold JavaScript codes inside of it. If I want to create a file to write Python inside, I call that file main.py, which indicates is a Python file. If I want to create a C++ file, I call it main.cpp, right? That is C++. Indicates now that I can only write C++ codes inside that file. If I want to name a C# file, I call it main.c#. I put the C# full like this. No, main.cs, sorry. Main.cs. That indicates now that this file can only hold a C# file. If I want to create a Java file, I call it main.java. So this indicates now that I can only create a Java file. That is why extensions are so very important and you have to learn it. You have to understand it. So now I've given you examples now in different programming languages. We have JavaScript, we have Python, we have C++, we have C#, and we have Java. If you want to create a JavaScript file, you name that file .js. So the extension of a file indicates what kind of content can hold that file. You can't see a MP4 file and you are not seeing, usually if that file is corrupted, that's when you can't see the video. You can't see an MP3 file and you're watching and you can see graphics moving. MP3 are only meant to be listened to. You can only listen to them. It's an audio format. So that's why file extension, for you to understand it, is so very important. Now, coming back to the first command that I mentioned, the first command is called pwd, which stands for print working directory. So if I come to my terminal now and I type out pwd, it's going to return this guy for me. So your own might be different from my own, but as long as it shall return something, it's fine. So what this guy returned here now is what we call a path, a PATH. You can see it at the top here. Is what we call a path, PATH. So what this guy indicates now that before I can come, so mind you, in this place here, in this C users and this guy that is shown at the end, they are all folders. Oh, they are all folders. Let me show it to you. If I come to my file explorer here, can you see this window C by the bottom? If I click on it, then what I'm going to go to next is users. This is users. Can you see the folder? I'll click on it. If I click on it, I can see this IZUAG. If I click on it, so what this my terminal here is saying now that this line of space, this entire line that I just highlighted, where I'm currently at in my terminal here, is exactly the same place I'm in my GUI in this space here. Everything you are seeing here can also be accessed in this place that I am in now currently. So that's what pwd does. Pwd prints your working directory. Let me give an example. Let's say now you are in your room now, for example, or I'm in my room. So now take that my room I'm in at that moment as my working directory. Do you understand? So that room I'm in at the moment is my working directory. Mean I'm currently inside that room. So what this guy means after typing pwd, it means now that I am currently inside this this folder, this guy that's shown at the end. I'm currently inside. But what this entire line is showing are the sequence of places I need to pass before I can get to this last place. So what this part is saying now is he said that I have to get to my C before I can get to my users folder. From my users folder, I need to get to this folder before I can, get to what I'm doing. So now, so okay, let's say I'm in this my room now. Before I can get to my room, I have to pass through the parlor door. I have to pass through the main gate. So that's what the path is. Just like you are walking through a path, or I give you, okay, you need a direction to go to Ikorodu. And so, okay, before I can get to Ikorodu, enter Ojota bus. From Ojota, enter this place. So that Ojota now is a path, or when you get to Ikorodu, is also a path. So Now, this is my working directory. This guy now is a folder. Don't let this thing deceive you. Don't let this PowerShell or this terminal that you are seeing, your command line interface deceive you. All these guys you are seeing printing out here, they are all folders. Anything you see printing out here, they're all folders. So I made a statement before that everything that is inside, so this is the actual folder in a graphical term. This is how everything looks like. So all the things you are seeing here in my GUI, they are also accessible in my terminal here. So now the next command I'm going to explain now, right, is the ls. Don't worry, once you just rewatch all these videos, you understand everything. ls stands for list. So like the name implies, I'm going to use to list out all the things that are in a current directory. So like I said now, this guy printing at the end now is a folder, or initially it is called a directory. So it means now that everything inside that directory, if I want to list out everything, I need to run the ls. So you can see now in my terminal now, I didn't have to do any ls. All I needed to do was just to click a simple button. These are everything listed out that I have in this directory. Can you look at, you can see where my mouse is now. I'm in this guy here, that means I'm in this guy. So how I got access to this place was I had to move from my C. If you check my terminal now, my terminal is telling me your C first. If you see C, then the next place you need to go to now is users. So I'm in my C now. If I look for users, this is users here at the bottom. When I click, like I said now in your GUI, what you perform are actions. So once I click now, it opens this. Then there are 4 folders here now. So now what this guy is now saying, okay, for my users, I now need to open what? This guy, this folder that is at the end now. When I open this folder now, this place now, this is where I'm currently at. That is my working directory. So if I run the ls command now, can you see where everything that is listing out now? Let me run the ls again. If I run the ls command, everything that I listed out here, right? Everything you have seen that is listing out here is exactly what we have in this place too. They are the same thing. There's no difference. So now to confirm now, we have a folder called Postman. If I come here now, if I look for Postman, PPPP, Postman, look at Postman folder here. So you can see now, they are just the same thing, but there are 2 different interfaces. Programmers work mostly on your terminal interface, or as a programmer, or even as somebody going into tech, at least you need to know the basic ways on how to use your terminal. I'm not saying you should learn how to use your terminal to hack, or to how to get remote access to someone's network, or to do all those necessary stuff. But at least you should be able to use it to navigate through your computer. Let's say I want to do something, But the honest truth is that you can still do all the things you want to do from your GUI, but you'll be so very limited. Because there are some things that, even as easy as it might look like, there are some things that you want to do on your project that your GUI, that means this file explorer here, cannot do. It can only be done on your terminal. You understand? It can only be done on your terminal. So I've explained 2 commands. The first command is called pwd, and it stands for print working directory. So it's used to print the directory that you're currently in, or in a layman term, in a real life example, it's used to print what folder you are currently at, what folder is currently opened. So for example, I give an example. If you're in your room is your working directory. So now there's what we call a path, P-A-T-H. And a path is where the series of places you need to pass before you can get to that your room. That's your working directory. So before you could get to your room, for example, probably you have to pass through your parlor door. From your parlor door, you need to pass through the staircase door. From the staircase door, then you get to your room. So that's the parlor, the staircase, and your room is now called a path. That is the series of like a walkthrough you have to pass before you can get to your room. So for example, now this guy I give as an example, the C, users, and this guy at the end now is a path. That is the series of places I need to pass before I can get to this particular folder. Like I said from the beginning, your laptop consists of files and folders, right? Your laptop consists of files and folders. So you can have folders inside folders and inside folders and inside folders. You can have, you shall have a nested amount of folders inside folders. But for a file, how you can differentiate a file is that a file must have an extension. An example of an extension like I gave is .png, .jpeg, those guys are all files. .html, that stands for an HTML file. .js, JavaScript, and the rest. It goes on and on. I'll also explain the ls command, which stands for list. We might not even actually touch codes today, because this is I didn't remember that we had to even do this thing the last time we met. But it actually takes an extensive amount of time for you to explain it to somebody, you know. So now, because sometimes once you can get this process, believe me, you can do so many things. You can, install servers, all these people that does all those server stuff, networking and all those things like that, they do it through the terminal. Because the terminal initially was the first tool that was created for a developer to use to work, or for a software engineer used to work. Linux operating system does not have GUI. A Linux operating system only looks like this. Well, they have a GUI, but their major operation base is working in a terminal like this, if you understand what I mean. So now I'm going to go on to the next command. Next command I'm going to explain is what we call a CD. CD. A CD command stands for change directory. So sorry for that. So now CD stands for change directory. Like the name implied, it's so very, very simple. Change directory means I want to move from one folder to another folder. That's what change directory stands for. To be able to move from one folder to another folder. But I can only move to a folder that is currently listed in my working directory. Meaning that I can only go into folders that are listed out here. Any folder that is not in my working directory, I can't go to that folder. Any folder that's not listed in my working directory. So let me give an example now. So if I say CD and I say Sam, it's obviously going to throw an error, like what you said, because it does not exist. Sam here does not exist inside what? This particular folder. Remember, I'm in this folder. This is the folder here. And if you check the folder here, I can't see Sam listing out here. So CD only works when the folder you want to go to is currently in your working directory. So CD is a dual command, meaning I have to type CD and the name of the directory I want to go to. CD, then the name of the folder I want to go to. So let's say I want to go to my desktop folder. If I check this guy, I should have desktop here. Desktop. Okay, there's no desktop. Okay, let me go to my OneDrive. My OneDrive is in my desktop. So before I can go to my desktop, I'll have to enter into OneDrive. So the command I need to write now is CD, then OneDrive. So can you see now? OneDrive now is printing at the end. CD means I've changed my directory from this guy to OneDrive. So in a real-time life, it means that, okay, maybe I've changed from my room to the bedroom. That's what it means. But that bedroom would have to be inside that room. Imagine if you want to go to a bedroom that is outside the room. You have to first exit the room before you can get to the bedroom. You can't fly from your room and enter the bedroom that is not currently inside your room. That's what this guy is doing. So OneDrive would have to exist inside this guy before I can CD to it. So now I've CD to OneDrive. If I use my PWD now, my PWD now is showing OneDrive at the end, meaning I'm no longer inside this folder. I'm now currently inside what? My OneDrive. That means in my command, my graphical user interface, what I just did down in that command was that I opened this folder. I just open this folder. So everything that is listed out here can be accessible here. If I run my ls command now, you should see it. Oh, sorry, let me minimize this guy. If I run my ls command, can you see certification? If you check my GUI, let me do it this way. If I check my certification now, if I check my GUI, just be looking at what I added by the side. You can see there's a certification folder is here. There's desktop. If you check here now, I have desktop. If you see, I have documents. Now I have documents. I have music and like that, and it goes on and on. So whatever I can do in my GUI can ultimately also affect my command line interface and vice versa. Whatever I do here, automatically it generically affects my computer itself. Do you understand? So now I want to go to my desktop directory. The command I need to do that again is what? CD, then desktop. And mind you, this thing is not case sensitive, meaning even I use small letter D, it will still go. But mind you, it's the name of the where I'm going to will have to match, exactly match. Do you understand? If I basically put S at the back of this desktop, it won't go to tell me that that guy does not exist. That means the name would have to be the same, but it is not case sensitive. Meaning if I arrange the casing anyhow, either uppercase or lowercase, it's still going to go nonetheless. So now what this guy, I've now gone to my desktop, meaning now I've gone to another room that's inside the toilet. So what you have moved currently is I've moved from my room to the toilet, and from the toilet I've gone to another room, and that room will have to exist inside the toilet, just like our desktop had to exist inside my OneDrive. So if I run my pwd again, now I have desktop printing at the end, which indicates now that my current working directory is where the desktop. So if I switch now to my GUI and I open my desktop, what that my graphical my CLI explain now is that I'm currently in this space. So you can see how my folder has folders inside, has another folder inside, and that folder will have another folder to have files, to have all those things. That is what like I explained, your computer only consists of file and folders. Even those applications that I've installed on my system, they are all files. They are all executable files, exe. They're all executable files. All those games, you can have them .apk, .exe, anything that shall have that dot at the end of it is considered to be a file. It's considered to be a file. So now, if I come back to my terminal now, right, what this guy indicates now is that I'm currently in my desktop, meaning I'm currently in this entire space in my file directory. If I come in and I write my ls command, all these things that are listed out here are as well inside this place. They are as well in this place. Artificial intelligence. If I come here now, I can see artificial intelligence folder. Where's artificial intelligence? Like this number I want to see them. Oh, I went to documents instead of. Sorry, let me come back. So I have to open my desktop. So this is my desktop. All right. So I have a 2023 folder. If I come here, I have 2023 listed out here at the first. The next thing I have scheduled materials. If I come here, I have scheduled materials, and so on and so forth. So this is how you can navigate through your computer. So you can see now I've successfully moved from one folder to another folder to another folder. But in my GUI, I don't have to type all those CD that I'm typing. All I needed to do initially was just to click. I can click. I've gone to my user. That is automatically in reference to your CLI. That means I just CD to user. If I click on this guy, it means I just CD to it. If I click on OneDrive, it means I just CD to it. If I click my desktop, it means I just CD into it, right? So that is as simple as that, as simple as what I just did. In my own terminal here, if I want to do that, I'll have to use the CD command, then the name of the directory that I want to go to. So now, another directory I'm going to explain, right, is going to be a mkdir, right? Mkdir stands for make directory. So this is like the second to the last one I will explain. Then I'm going to show you how you can create a GitHub account. So I'll explain what GitHub is all about, Git and GitHub. But for now, let's just continue first. So the next command now is mkdir, which stands for make directory. So like the name is quite explanatory. pwd, print working directory. ls, list. cd, change directory. mkdir, make directory. So this video is being recorded, so even though you are not following like attentively, even if you're not following attentively, you can still watch the video again, watch the video over and over and over and over and over again. So now make directory now is a command. So like I explained, the title of the command is make directory. So it's used to create a folder. In a layman term, used to create a folder. So let's have to create a folder now. Initially in my GUI, all I need to do is just to click on this new at the top. It might be different for if you're using Windows 10, but if I click on this new, I can see folder. Once I click on folder, to take me to where I can name the folder. So let me name the folder Samuel. Right. I just created the folder now using my GUI, as simple as it is. I just click a button and I name the folder and that's it. But in my GUI, in my terminal rather, I can't create a folder like that. Like in my this space, I don't have any button I can click. But to create a folder, I use what we call a command. And in full, we call it a text-based command. Like I said here, we call it a did I mention it? Oh, I think I did, but I didn't write it here. But it's actually called a text-based command. Okay, I did it. This is a text-based command, But in my GUI, I perform actions by clicking, right? Clicking, double click, and everything. But for my GUI, I use what we call a text-based command, right? Text-based command. And all these commands that I listed out here are all example of a text-based command. So I've explained pwd ls is used to list out the content that is inside a working directory. Next one I mentioned is cd, which is used to change from one directory, change change from one directory to another. Next one I'm going to explain now is called mkdir, which stands for make directory. So mkdir, I just type mkdir, right? Then I'm now going to name the directory. So stands for make directory. Then the next thing that's going to come in will be the name I want to call that directory. So let's I want to call the directory David. Right, so you can see it here, David, as simple as it is. So I press enter. So if I check my GUI now, I should see a directory called David. Where is David? This is David here. So as simple as it. So whatever I can do in my GUI, I can multiply and do it in my CLI. But there are some things that my CLI can do and my GUI cannot do them. But basic operations like this, like creating a file, creating a folder, moving from one folder to another, your GUI can do it. But there are some advanced things that this guy can do that your GUI cannot do. So there are some rules in creating a folder. So for example, if I want to create a folder and call it my folder, I can't name it like this. I can't use space. If you see now, there's space in this place. I can't use space because originally it won't throw error. But what this guy will do is to create two folders. It will call one my and to call the second one folder. Let's test it now. If I run it now, folder already exists. So initially, you can't even create a folder that already exists before. If I try to do mkdir David again, it's going to throw error, right? That name already exists. So, but initially, when you're creating a directory, you don't use space. In programming self, when you're naming anything in programming entirely, when naming anything in programming or in software development, you don't use space in naming it, right? Because your computer cannot differentiate whether those two things they are singular, whether they are one. As this computer understand, these two things are separate. But if you want to name a folder that has two words, like my folder, for example, just join it together. Don't stress yourself, just join it together. Hyphens go, hyphen will work, but in most cases, it's best practice not to put special characters like comma, hyphen, and the rest when naming a folder. So in most cases, you just put it like, just join it together. Just join it together, my folder, just join it together. So if I run this guy now, if I come back to my GUI, I come down. Can you see it here? This is it, my folder. So if I want to cd, if I want to go into that my folder I created, all I need to do is to say cd, which stands for change directory, then I call the name of the folder, my folder. So what I just did now is that I have gone into this particular folder. So now the next command I want to explain, right, is what we call touch, right? The touch command is used to make a file. The touch command is used to make a file. So the only touch here is the only wildcard out of all of them. It's the only prodigal son. All the other commands they have like a descriptive name for it, like mk, dir, make directory, cd, change directory, ls, list, pwd, But touch, the thing went, okay, touch can work in, okay, let's use echo if that's the case. So in some terminals don't accept touch, but your git bash accept touch. So if you want to use, sometimes if you use touch and it doesn't work, you can use echo, right? You can use echo. So I don't think touch will work here, but let's try it. So touch, I want to create a file now, right? I want to create a Python file because that is the programming language we are learning now. So let me call it main.py. So can you see it throws an error? So the term touch is not recognized as the name of a commandlet. So I'm going to now use echo. So but touch can work in some terminals, especially when you are using your git bash. But we're not using git bash here, we're using the normal command prompt or the PowerShell. So what we could use instead of using touch is we can use echo. So I'll echo, right? Then I use double quotes. Then I use the greater than sign. Then I say main.py, right? Echo, then I do this, then I name it main.py. So once I run it now, right, there's no error. If I come back here, can you see now I have a file here called main.py. Because if I let me zoom into it, now I have a file here, and that file is called main.py. So you can see this guy now is a Python file. You can see the icon he gave it here is quite different, right? That is indicating it's a Python file. But what's giving it this icon is actually my PyCharm that I installed, right? But now, to creating a file, I have to use the echo. But sometimes you can try this touch first, but I doubt if it's going to work. But anytime it works, even if it doesn't work, you can now use this echo. So now the last command I'm going to explain now would be code, right? Code can be used in two ways, right? The first way is when we use code space dots, and the second way is when we use code then the file name. I'm going to explain the two. So now if I use code space dots, what this command does is that it opens this entire folder on my Visual Studio Code. Remember, Visual Studio Code was that thing that that was installed on your system. That guy that I told you I can use to write codes, the guy that had the blue icon, that is your Visual Studio Code. But now this command actually came by the point of view installing your Visual Studio Code. So what this command does, code space then dot, is going to open this entire folder under your Visual Studio Code so you can start writing codes. But if you don't want to open the entire folder, if you want to open only a particular file in that folder, right? If I run the ls command now to list, I have only one file in this folder, which is what? main.py. So I can do code space the main.py, right? To run the command now, I press enter, I run the command. Then you should see now that I can see that's opened my my Visual Studio Code. If I zoom in now, I can see I have main.py. Hey, what have I done like this now? I have main.py. Do you understand? What's wrong with this thing now? I'm zooming it so much. So you can see now this guy now he opened only this particular file, but that's not what we want to do. We want to open the entire folder. We want to open the entire folder in a new Visual Studio tab. We want to open the entire folder in a new Visual Studio tab. So all we have to do, instead of running the code main.py, the file name can be anything, not only main. You can call it your name, so you can call it david.py or anything.py. But initially, most times the default name is always main, but you can call it anything you want to call it. So if I now, instead of me using this code and the file name, what I need to do is say code space dot, which is going to open the entire folder in a new Visual Studio tab. Can you see that has opened the entire folder in a new Visual Studio window? So if you check by the sidebar, you can see the file listed out here. So in the sidebar here, all the files that are inside this folder, that is inside my folder, is going to be listed out here. So let me create another file. If I say echo, right, I put two double quotes, then I put the greater than sign. If I say index.py, I'm creating a new file. If I run it, if I check here now, I should have the second file. You can see it here, index.py. This is why it's important when you use code space dot to open the entire folder than opening just one particular file. So if I go to my main.py, this indicates now that I can write Python codes, right? I can run Python codes, and I can write the Python programming language here for for me to execute it later. I can do a simple code and say print right? I can say print hello world, right? Print hello world. So this guy here is actually a Python code. I could remember the last class I actually explained what print does. So print is going to collect whatever I pass into these two brackets, right? In programming, we call those two brackets parentheses, right? In programming, we call those two brackets parentheses. My spelling correct? Yes, parentheses. That's what we call it. So now whatever you pass into the parentheses will be printed out. So if I want to run this code now, my main.py, right? All I have to do now is to click on this run button at the top. Can you see this? That looks like play. I just need to click on that button. So once I click on it, right, this is going to run this particular file for me. But my Python is taking so much time to run. Run code, run now. Let's just give it a little bit time. Is loading all my extensions. It's loading my Python. All right. So let's run it again and see. Oh, sorry. I did a syntax error. So let me run it again. What is it saying now? Non-UTF-8 code starting with blah 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 blah. What's the error now? What's going on with this thing? Non-UTF-8 code starting with blah 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 in file on line 1, but no encoding declared. What's wrong? What's wrong with this thing now? See the same error. Non-UTF-8 code starting with blah 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 in file. Let me see. Maybe it's the way I created the file. Let me create another file here. I think it's the way I created that file. Let me print and I call it hello. So I call it test.py. So if I say Python tests.py, yeah, I think it's the way I created that file. So you could see now it's printing out hello. So it's printing out hello. And wait, I want to ask, do you have Python? Did we install Python in the last class? Okay, yeah, we did. We installed Python. Yes, we installed Python. So now I think there's a problem with how I created this particular file here. But I think I didn't have to use echo. So now I've created this file, right? And we have, if I should run it now on my console, I should see the response. So you can see it's printing out hello here. So I'm going to run some simple arithmetic here. If I should say 2 plus 2, no, sorry, if I come down here and I wrap this guy into 2 plus 2. Initially, if I want to run this code, I can run it in two ways. I can come back to my terminal and I write Python, then I write the name of the file, test.py. It's going to run the code for me. So you could see now I have 4 here. So what Python did initially was to calculate these two, calculate the arithmetic together before it printed out the results. You know, I could also do this print. I can print, let's say my name is Sam, right? If I come back here and I run the code again, then you can see it's 4 and it also printed my name is Sam. So I can, okay, now, so that's what, so the print what the print now is called a function, right? A function is a block of codes written to perform a task, right? A function is a block of code written to perform a task. So now this function, now what the task of the function now is to collect whatever is passed into the parentheses and log it to the console. So we have it here. This is what we call the console, or still the same thing here on your Visual Studio. So it takes whatever is being passed as arguments and it loads and it logs it rather to your console. So now I'm going to explain what we call variables. Variables. So variables are container that holds a value, right? A variable is a container that holds a value, right? A variable is a container that holds a value. So now, for example, Sam here now was hard coded, right? But what if I don't want to hard code Sam? What if I want to declare the name of I want the value of the name that I'm going to display in my print should change, right? I could do something like this. I can say name, right, is equals to, then I can call it what? Sam. So in this case now, name here is sorry, don't put this quotes at the end. That's semicolon rather. Is Python don't allow semicolon, but languages like TypeScript, C# and all those guys, it's mandatory for you to add the semicolon at the back. But for Python, you don't need to add the semicolon at the back. So name is equals to Sam, right? Then I could come back here. Let me bring this guy down, right? Instead of me to say do this, I can say print my name is, then I can now pass name here, right? My name is name. Will this guy even run? Let me see. I hope it doesn't show any error. All right, so we have it here. My name is Sam, right? So my name is Sam. So you could see now that if the guy printed out, let me run the code again so you see. If I want to run the code, I just need to call Python, right? Python. My spelling is wrong. Python test.py, right? Then if I run it, it runs the command. Or if you don't want to pass through the stress, all you need to do is just to press. You should see a play button by the top here. You see a play button by the top here. All you need to do is just to press it, and it automatically runs your code for you. So once you check it now, you can have it here. My name is Sam. So you could see now Sam here is printing out this line 5. But you should see now that instead of it printing my name is name, it's printing out my name is Sam. The reason is because name here is a variable, all right? And I explained now that a variable is a container that holds a value. So remember that time in mathematics when you can say let x equals to 8. So that means when you're solving the equation now, wherever you see the value of x, you equate it with, why am I putting semicolon at the end? Because I don't write Python that much. I write other programming language that indicates that is mandatory. So now let ax is equals to 8. So what this guy indicates now that, oh sorry, no let's. What am I doing, sir? This is Python. So if I can say 8 is equals to x, so where x8 exists, the value of x now it changes to what? To 8. The same thing applies in what? In line 5. So name is equals to Sam. So whatever Sam is being displayed from line 5 downwards is always going to equate to what? Sam. So this guy here, instead of it in showing my name is name, is now going to show my name is Sam, because I've equated that the value of name should be what? Should be Sam. Right? I can come here and change this guy to David. Right? If I run this code again, I should see now it's showing my name is David. So whatever value name holds will always be displayed, be printed out here. So now in this line 4, there are things that are happening behind the scene, and there are things that are here that does not, anything you see in programming is not showing by magic. There's a particular reason why that thing is there. So there's a particular reason why the equal to is there. There's a particular reason why we have quotes, double quotes. There's a particular reason why we have comma. There's a particular reason why we have that bracket. Every single thing is not just there. There's a reason why it needs to be there. So I'm going to explain now. So like I said now, the name there is a variable, and a variable holds a value like I explained. And a variable cannot start with a number. So it's a taboo to name a variable something like this. One name, right? This guy here will throw error. One name is not a variable, right? If I put one here now and I try and run the code now, should throw an error, right? Can you see what it's throwing? Invalid decimal literal, meaning now that a variable cannot start with a number, right? And a variable cannot have special characters, like all these guys here, all these bobo that I are seeing, all these special characters like comma and the rest. I think the only guy that Python allows is underscore. So you can actually name a variable my underscore name, right? So I can put my underscore name, and this should work fine. It shouldn't throw any error, right? So you see it here. My name is David. So now the casing, the naming convention we use to name a variable in Python is what we call snake case. Snake case, right? In the case where you can see it's looking like a snake underscore. So let's say I want to name it. You remember I mentioned that time when you're naming a folder in mkdir, right? Like I said, you don't use space. If I run this guy now, this guy should throw an error because I'm putting space. Either I type it together, but Python not allow you to type it together. It will work, but that is not the actual proper way to name a variable that consists of two words in Python. If you want to name a variable that consists of two words, you use underscore, right? Use underscore. So my name is equals to David, and you have this guy. So that's what a variable does. A variable does holds the value. So whatever is equated by the right, that is the value of what is the variable going to be by the left. So the equal to sign, right? The equal to sign is what we call a assignment, an operator, right? What we call an operator. What we call an operator. So there are different type of operator, yes. So there is what we call, I'm coming. Let me do this now. I'm coming. Number one, the one of the operator we have is what we call the assignment. I'll explain the others later, but we have what we call the assignment operator, right? Assignment operator are, operator that are used to assign value to a variable. For example, now equal to is an assignment operator. Equal to here is an assignment operator. So what this guy is saying is that I'm assigning what by the left to what by the right. Equal to. So what that means now is that wherever I see the variable name called my name is equal to David. Do you understand? So now this is what we call an assignment operator. There are also different kind of example of an assignment operator, right? There's the plus equal to an assignment operator, minus equal to, all those guys. As long as Dasha has equal to in it, right? It's an assignment operator. So now the last guy that we have on the list now is what we call sorry, right? Number two now is what we call. So now I've explained my name, which is the variable. Let me put it here. My name, which is the variable, then equal to here, which is the assignment operator, right? It means that I'm assigning what's by the left side, sorry, what's by the right to be what's by the left. So I explained now that the assignment operator is the equal to. So now the last guy on the list here, which is David that is in quotes now. David that is in quotes is what? David that is in quotes is what we call a string, right? A string. So there are different kind of primitives, what we call primitives in Python. So primitives are the kind of how would I explain this? Are the kind of syntax that you can see in Python. So we can have numbers. You can have, okay, let me just name them now. You can see, so this guy like this now, or you can call it primitives or data type. So we have string, we have numbers like 1 million, right? Is that 1 million? Yes, like 1 million. I think we have float, which is like 1.0. Okay, let me just do this guy so that you see type. I've actually forgotten this thing. Is it type of? Hey, somewhere. I've forgotten the command for this thing. Let me just confirm to see if I'm correct. We have type of. Let me see if it's going to run. Uh, Is it type of or just type? Let me see. Can't believe I've forgotten this thing. Let me see if it's going to work. I'm coming. I've forgotten this thing. Can you imagine? So check a data type in Python. What's wrong with my network now? Oh, I don't want to be guessing this thing. Oh, let me see. Type off. It should be type off now. Wait, let me wrap it in quotes. Let me in parentheses. Let me see if it's going to go. I can't believe I've forgotten this thing. That guy didn't work. Type. Okay, I'm correct now. It's type, but why did that guy not work? You just use type and wrap it. Where is itself? Yeah, you wrap it. But initially it's meant to print out string. I didn't know why it didn't print out anything. But let me save. Okay, let me say. Okay, you know what? Let's do the same example for my name. Let's check the type of data my name is. Right? Let's check the type of data my name is. So we should print out string at the end. But I don't know why this guy is not printing out anything. Oh my god. Why have I forgot? You have to wrap it with print. So you have to wrap it with print before the guy can even work. I forgot. It belongs since I write this guy. Yeah, so you can have it. So you can see it now. It's a type of a string, right? So my name now is a type of a string. A string, a series of characters enclosed in quotes. So in Python, when you see anything enclosed in these quotes, right, it's considered to be a string. Do you understand? It's considered to be a string. So it could be single quotes, right, or double quotes. Whatever the case might be, it's still going to work, right? So now I had to wrap it with print before the thing could actually work. So I can declare another variable. I can call it my number. Let's call it my number equals to, let's say, 100, right? My number equals to 100. If I come down, right, and I print the type, that is the data type of my number, right? If I print data type of my number, but don't mind me, what is happening here is that the first bracket is for the print. The second bracket that is purple that is inside is for type. So type has to have a parenthesis, so as print has to have a parenthesis. So if I run the code now, right, I should see what's happening now. Let's see they do this thing now. Let me run it. Let me see. Right, you can see it here now is returning an int. So int indicates an integer. So this guy like this now, right? Sorry, this guy like this now indicates a string to represent as str. We don't spell it fully, we just call it str. The next one indicates an int, like a number. So I remember I mentioned that this string is anything in quotes, anything, even though you have in quotes 100 or 1000, that guy is not a number, it's a string. If you have -10, that guy is not in quotes, right? It's considered to be a string. It's considered to be a string and not a number. But when you have stuff like 100 now should be a number. So now instead of me declaring variables, I could just actually even call it straight up. So I can do print. So I want to print the data type of, let's see, the data type of 1.0, right? 1.0. If I come back here, I run, now we have float. So anything that has these points, right, the decimal at the front of it is a floating number. This one is not considered an int. In this case, it's no longer an int, it's a what? It's a float. No longer an int, it's a floating number, right? So we also have different data types. So we still have tuple, we have lists, we have all those guys. So I'm going to send you a list of like a what do you call this thing again? A cheat sheet. So you can read everything, you can know all the multiple data types. So I actually want to show you something before. Let me do that one before we finish. So I'm going to show you the process, and now you can create a GitHub account. This is very, very important for you to create, right? A GitHub account, for example, is more like, should I call it a social media for developers? Just like how in your Instagram you can post videos, posts, you can post, contents and everything. TikTok, you post content. So as GitHub, in GitHub, we post our codes. We post our code so that other people can either go to copy, discuss about the code, copy that code, or obviously just like how Instagram really is. But instead of us commenting on pictures, we can comment on other people's code. We can also share codes. And minus that is also important in tracking your progress, number one. And number two, in a corporate world, if you're working in any software development company, you must have a GitHub account, because that's where they'll ask you, they want to see the works that you've done before. So now this is my own GitHub account. You can actually measure your streaks, the most language that I've used, which is JavaScript, to manage my stats and everything, the numbers of times I contributed. So this year so far, I've made 182 contributions to 2025. So GitHub will, minus all these things, initially is meant to help you to track. You can save all your projects on GitHub, meaning in cases even though your laptop gets spoiled, you can still have access to your GitHub project later in the future. So this is my laptop to currently spoil now. This particular project that I have here, crypto SaaS, right? I can still later on still come back and retrieve the project from my GitHub account. Just like how, on your Instagram, if you've posted some videos before, your pictures before, you can still go back there, and still save them back to your local machine. That the same thing happens here. So I'll show you the process and how you can create a GitHub account. Or it's not really that hard. You can just go to github.com. Let me sign out so that you can see. I'm signed in. So if I sign out now, in creating your GitHub account, you just go to sign up, right? You go, or you can just enter your email address here. Enter your email, sign up, follow the process, and you create your account. That's that. It's not really a big issue. I don't want to do one again because I already have an account. But since we're not together, I can't look at you doing it now. But what you just do, just go to it, github.com. Then you put in your email address here, an email in an email address, and particularly the one you've not used if you've not created a GitHub account before. So you just sign up for GitHub. Then it takes you to a place where you input your password, your username, and stuff like that. So that you can create a GitHub account. So creating a GitHub account is so very important because number one, that is what I'm going to use to track what you are doing. So any assignments or any project that I give to you, right, you would have to push that project to your GitHub account. You would have to push that project to your GitHub account so that one of the major good example of having a GitHub account is when it comes to collaborative programming. Meaning now you can have five developers working on one particular project. I can work on one part of the project, you can work on one part of the project, but we are still collaborating in one. Can only be possible using what? GitHub. Right, can only be possible using GitHub. So this is how the GitHub looks like. So this is my if I go to my repositories now, in the repository tab holds all the old projects that I've pushed. So at the moment now, I've pushed 39 projects. So this is like an example of a project. All these guys are the projects that I've pushed, and any project you push is going to show up the language you use in that project. For example, this one I use TypeScript, this one C sharp, this one like that, like that. It goes on HTML, JavaScript, and the rest. So, but initially you can use it to check your profile and things and things and things like that in particular. So now this is where we're going to stop for today's class. I know we didn't really go dive into the whole we didn't get to dive into the whole Python thing in particular in like creating